How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a little bit different today. It's actually been quite a bit since I've made a video. For those who have been watching and interested, we've just been walking through Ephesians. But I wanted to just change that up. And the reason it's been so long since I've posted a video is because I have a son who's been married. We've had family in town. We've been busy with ministry and pastoring the church and all kinds of life changes. So now I've got a little bit of time, and so I wanted to get back in and make this video. But what I want to do today is a book review. I want to review this book that I had the opportunity to read just a month and a half ago or so. It's called The Plurality Principle by Dave Harvey and a foreword by Sam Storms. Maybe you've read it, maybe not. So that's why I wanted to do this review. So this is relevant to church planters, pastors, leaders, in any capacity, any size church. And I hope that I hope it's fruitful. I hope it's something that you will take to heart and consider. If what is said just in this brief review encourages you or challenges you to read this book because you hear something that rings true scripturally, then I would say follow that inkling, that calling, and go get the book, read it, because I believe God will use it. It's only echoing what I believe is clearly stated in Scripture. Now, I know there's all kinds of views on church polity, or what would be more regularly called church government, how a church is run, who leads the church, how is the church to be led. And I believe the Bible is very clear that it's to be done by elders. Most people would say that they believe that's the case. Sometimes there's a mix of terminology between elders and pastors. I believe those are synonymous with each other. They're used interchangeably. And they are the leaders of the church, the shepherds of the church. Not just leaders, but shepherds. And this book particularly brings up this idea of plurality, that there isn't a case in the Scripture to be made for a church, a local gathering, a body of believers to be led by just one man. Now, we've seen what seems to be that case in many cultures, many cases. It's here in the state of Maine where I live. There's churches that are led by what seems to be one man, with sort of a team that is behind him, and all depending on what that kind of under the surface, how that is run, it's hard to say unless you're part of that church. But I'm making the case, and so is Dave Harvey in this book, that a church should be run by a plurality, by more than one. So oftentimes depending on the size of the church, of course, but I would say even more than two if possible, right? You're aiming for plurality, multiple. So you're not going for the minimum, you're going for as many as would be fitting for that congregation. But a plurality of leaders, a plurality of elders, male, qualified, called men to lead and shepherd the church. So here's a quick review. Sorry for that long introduction. I'm going to just sort of walk through just a little bit and just kind of comb through it so you have an idea. But I'm going to say go ahead and buy this book, get it. I believe it'll challenge you, especially if you're part of a traditional church with sort of the senior pastor deacon model, or the senior pastor board of directors model, or if it seems like you're trying to lead the church as the pastor, but the deacons seem to be doing most of the leading, and you're just sort of the hired teacher. I don't believe that's healthy or biblical. And though I know you could be in a variety of situations where you came into an older church with an existing church polity, and your desire is to have a plurality, but you just don't see the men to raise up. You don't see God calling men to step up and lead with you. Hold out hope and trust the Scriptures. Move forward in obedience and live based on your conviction. Don't succumb to the fear that sets in. Oftentimes when we're trying to please man, we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to shake things up. And so sometimes we can stay in that rut way too long to where we don't follow what we believe God is telling us to do, what we believe we see in, not Scripture, but in Scripture. Normally I'm holding a Bible, but what we see in Scripture, and for that we end up perpetuating something that is disobedience. So it's a great book. It's easily read. I read it in about 4 days, I guess, total. Just to kind of comb through the table of contents, it begins with a plurality primer. He just kind of lays out the idea of how he first became interested or aware of the need for plurality of elders. In chapter 2, he makes the case for a first among equals, and so I believe that is I believe that's biblical, but I also believe that that's also practical. That to have a team of people, it's more practical for there to be one person who kind of carries the vision, is a clearer communicator, is able to take a group of men and move them forward in the same direction, so that there's some continuity and a healthy amount of leadership and calling people towards sort of higher ground, further growth. And so that is making the case for how a first among equals, which is where we might get the term lead pastor or senior pastor. So I would make the case that is still okay. You could have a lead pastor title or a senior pastor title as long as those terms are not abused and taken outside of the realm of what Scripture calls us to, and that is a plurality or multiple men leading the church, shepherding the church together as a body. Then it says dressing for leadership, 5 hats senior pastors wear, and he's just making the sort of the case for how much work is put into the lead pastor role, and then also what comes with that is a desire and a need for there to be help and assistance. Counterfeit pluralities, and these are the situations that you may find yourself in, or maybe you've seen and witnessed. These are people who say that they have a plurality of elders, but they actually don't. They don't kind of put that out at the front and center for the church to see. They're kind of pretending that they're a plurality when in fact that they're not. Building a culture of care and accountability. He makes the case that is the necessary move to be made, that you have to be a plurality in order for there to be safety and accountability from sin, power struggle, all these things, that you have a plurality of men shepherding and leading the body together, and it creates a culture of accountability and care. And that's an incredible chapter. It makes a great case for this. Acknowledging and sharing power, that's an important chapter. Now, we understand that there is power struggle, right? And that's our sin nature. And one safeguard against that is plurality. And I think God was very, very wise in making that the regular form of biblical polity in church government. And the sharing of power. So because of that, we intentionally, amongst leaders, amongst our elders, we share power. We make it very clear that the authority, the voting power, if you want to say it that way, how decisions are made, not one elder, whether they are lead pastor, executive pastor, worship pastor, which are some of the titles we use in our church, not one has a greater amount of actual power than the other. And that is important. That is important to make that distinction. Let's move forward. The plurality tune-up, just some more. He kind of uses the analogy of an engine, a 4-cylinder engine, kind of running on 4 cylinders, 3 cylinders, 2 cylinders. So he uses that as an idea to kind of bolster the need for plurality. Chapter 8, the joy-boosting delight of shared ministry. Just that sense of sharing ministry and how it gives joy to the pastors, the leaders, and to the church body when you share together the shepherding role and choose to lead the church body that way. And so at the end of the book, he gives in a few appendixes, elders, care for your senior pastor. So he clearly makes that distinction there, that there is amongst this group of elders a first among equals. And because oftentimes the lead pastor, and it is the case at the church where I serve, I do the brunt of teaching, about 75% of the pulpit ministry, and so a lot of my time is in theological training and exercising my gift as a teacher, as a preacher, but also I carry the kind of the brunt of the load of the vision and the direction of the church as a whole, but sharing that with the elders and communicating and sharing and making decisions together. Where I might table a decision, put something forward, there's always a collaborative effort in the major decisions of the church. Let's see, what are some the other appendix? Your wife is not your plurality. How much should a pastor tell his wife? So some practical things there. What's the best way for a pastor to negotiate his salary? So he just puts some of these things for paid pastors, generally, which would be the lead pastors and the senior pastors. giving most of their time to the preaching of the word. And then term limits for elders. Now that I think is not what everybody would do, but there are some churches I've read of, including some that Dave Harvey has read of, or even been a part of, where some of the lay elders, I would say, are actually given a particular term where they would actually rotate in and out of eldership, whereas the senior pastor or the lead pastor who is on staff is not going to be rotated out. So this book, listen, if you're part of an elder team, if you are a senior pastor, if you are desiring for there to be more of a team leadership within your church, which I think is oftentimes the thing that's causing many of the churches around us to flounder and fail and flop and struggle with lead pastors burning out, and churches that are frustrated, is because usually have one man at the helm who's fighting for his life to get things done and he has no help. This book is, I would say, a great primer pointing to Scripture, helping to bolster what Scripture has already been teaching for centuries, that we should be leading as teams of pastors. So that's my really quick, brief review. For what it's worth, go get the book. If you're part of a healthy evangelical church, then this is something I believe that will help you. All right. God bless you guys. As always, make sure if you made it to the end of the video, and I hope that you did, that you go and you subscribe and click the bell so that you can get the notifications for any future videos. Let me know how you like this, if it was helpful, if you're going to go ahead and buy the book, or maybe you have another book like it that you'd recommend. And of course, if you have opposing views and you want to share that in the comments, you're welcome to do that as well. All right, everybody, God bless you, and we will see you next time.